Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter. This week on the show, we are talking about none other than UFC Vegas 105, and it is going down with a featherweight main event. We've got Josh Emmett back in the driver's seat. My man knocked Bryce Mitchell back a few centuries, and now he's taking on Lerone Murphy, a guy who's been calling him out, a guy who's looking for this 5-round opportunity to step up, but he's fought close in a couple of these spots before. Can he break through in his first UFC main event? We're all going to find out together on Saturday night. But in the meantime, let's talk about the betting angles. Let's talk about all the different ways we're breaking down this fight from a technical and analytical standpoint. And you know we can't go it alone on Bets and Banter. So without further ado, our great guest, once again, by popular demand, Wizz MMA back in the building. How are you, my brother?
My guys, how you doing? Liam, as always, it's a pleasure. And I'm just going to have to say it. It's Torres, Finney, fight week. Finally, I am heading to Vegas this Friday, early in the morning, 7 a.m. flight, and looking to get this first W with my guy Torres. So excited to break this card down. Let's do it.
I absolutely love it. It's Torres Finney fight week. It's Wizz MMA fight week because he's going to be there ready to party. So, man, we're excited to have some on-the-ground perspective this week. But without further ado, my brother, we'll do it like we always do. We'll start with that first fight of the night, work our way on up the card. And as of right now, Tapology is showing me Lookboonmee versus Estela Nunes as the first fight on the card. So we're going to share our Tapology screen so everybody else can look along with us. But what we have here is a big favorite in Lookboonmee. She's taking on an Estela Nunes here who's coming back off an injury. She got hurt in about 30 seconds or less against Victoria Dudakova. Very strange exchange. Goes for a takedown, horrible looking, misdirection single. The girl falls back and just planted on her hand wrong. Looked like a wrist snapped in half. Just a horrible scene. Like nothing good about it. Gets back in there, and she's got a 6-5 record. She capitulates when fights get deep. I mean, if you watch this girl get into extended fights, round 2, round 3, she's giving up the mount. She's giving up the back. She's getting taken down more and more frequently. She fouls with a great frequency, right? She fouled Sam Hughes, poked her in the eyes, got a point taken, maybe a little bit prematurely. But when you look back, she fouls in every fight, guys. If you go to take her down, she's going to grab the fence. She's going to do anything she can to try and keep herself upright because, frankly, when she's on the ground, when you get her into an extended grappling situation, she's not very good. So she has a decent get-up game along the fence. She has a decent idea of what she's supposed to be doing there. But the longer you put her in that cycle, the more likely she is, in my humble opinion, to capitulate. We've seen it against Ariane Carnelosi, giving up bad positions late in that fight. She defended well early. By the later portions of that fight, giving it up. Sam Hughes is taking her down, flat backing her to the full mount. Horrible look. Ended the fight 2 minutes and a half on her back, flat on the ground. So I'm just seeing an Estela Nunes that has had a lot of glaring holes in her game. We wish her nothing but health and continued happiness, but I think her record's going to run to 500 as a professional, and I think she's going to be out of the UFC after Lookboonmee takes her down and beats her up on the ground. Because the one thing about Loma that she's shown over time with the Hickman brothers, she's getting much better at her well-rounded mixed martial arts approach. She started as a pure Thai fighter. She's from Thailand, one of the only Thai fighters in the UFC. And what does she bring to the table? She's got good skills on the feet, but that's where Estela Nunes shines. So in my humble opinion, she should use her newfound skills, her leverage on the ground to take this girl down and beat her up there. She's 29. I think she gets better each and every fight. And I believe Lookboonmee is going to win this one. She's a massive favorite. I don't think there's any value on the betting line. In fact, I think the line is getting a little bit out of hand given some of the nature of volatility in women's mixed martial arts. But I like the toughness. I like the well-rounded approach from Lookboonmee. I think she wins the fight. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I share a lot of the same sentiments here. I'll just say this. The dislocated elbow is probably one of the hardest injuries to come back from in MMA. It's just hard to regain that strength in that joint, and it's one of the most important joints because that's what you're primarily using for 80% of what you're doing unless you're kicking. So whether it's the defending takedowns, whether it's throwing strikes, it's just hard to get back to how you were pre-injury. And then I do like the measurable advantages that Estela has here, and she's aggressive. But obviously the glaring hole is a takedown defense, and Loma has shown the capability of taking girls down over and over again. Example, Exhibit A, it's Elise Reed fight. She's able to go after the takedowns and not just only have a 15-minute striking affair, which is what she used to show in the UFC and pre-UFC. But I do like the evolution in her career in terms of the takedowns, and really utilizing them in key situations to win rounds and just end rounds on top, land a lot of damage. Her elbows from the top in half guard are nasty. So I do see an opportunity for a Loma finish in this fight, but ultimately I'm just going to go Loma Lookboonmee by decision, and no surprise.
There you have it, my man. I do think she has some finishing upside here if she's getting takedowns. If not, if this fight plays out on the feet, I think it's going to be a more closely contested decision where Loma probably just takes it in the later rounds, round 2, round 3, a little bit more emphasis, a little bit more efficiency. It's hard to come back. When you had cardio problems to begin with, you've had a layoff now. I just don't like a lot of what I've seen from Estela Nunes. So again, wish her nothing but the best. I just don't think that this UFC career has worked out so well for her. And I don't expect that to change on Saturday. Next up, my man, we got Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Talita Alencar. And how about this for setting the stage, Wiz? I looked back, and Vanessa Demopoulos has outlanded just 2 of her UFC opponents on significant strikes. Or I should say, she hasn't been outlanded on significant strikes twice. I think one of them was a tie. She has outlanded only 2 opponents on total strikes. The girl has been running very hot in terms of her results. On the other side, Talita Alencar has never outstruck an opponent in the UFC. 3 fights up, 3 fights down in terms of outstriking anybody. She needs to get her wrestling going in all of her fights. I think Vanessa Demopoulos doesn't have very good takedown defense, but Talita Alencar doesn't have very good takedown offense. I mean, she's getting stuffed on a lot of her takedowns by Rayanne Amanda. So ugly fight, Wiz. What do you think about this one? I know that people want to hear some of my thoughts because I've done well on Vanessa in the past, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this one, brother?
I have a lot to say about this one, surprisingly, even though I've not really done good on both of these chicks. But I mean, we obviously know what Talita's going to go in there and do, and she's going to be hunting for takedowns and trying to get this fight as quick as she can to the ground. And a lot of people are going to play the narrative that Demopoulos' grappling is somewhat really good or on the level of Talita, and I just flat out disagree. Talita's a credentialed world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Vanessa has shown very poor takedown defense. Now, in the last, not her last fight, the fight against, what's the chick's name? Kanako Murata. She was able to defend a couple of the takedowns now, albeit Kanako Murata was coming off of a pretty long layoff in that fight. If she's able to defend takedowns in the first round, I just think that Talita's cardio is going to fade very quickly and Vanessa will take over. But I do see a path where Talita takes her down in the first round and submits her. So there's 2 ways this fight can play out. The way I'm looking at it is I'm going to try and snipe Vanessa Demopoulos live if she survives after round 1. And, just pray for the best. I do think that as the fight goes on, Vanessa's going to take over. Talita's cardio is, from what I hear, not the best at the moment, and she's gassing out pretty quickly after some, grappling rounds. And I'm gonna have to side with Vanessa just because of that, because I do think Vanessa's tough. I think she just finds a way to squirrel her way out of some really bad positions, with all due respect. But yeah, I pick Vanessa Demopoulos out right here, and I'll be looking to play her live.
Yeah, I think I would need plus money to get involved with Vanessa in this fight, but I do ultimately think, when it comes down to it, I like her side just a tiny bit more. I look at Talita Alencar as a girl who came to MMA a little bit late, right? When I look at her upside, she hasn't had many pro MMA fights. Maybe she could make rapid improvements. I did look and see that she was training with Tracy Cortez, Fight Ready. Those are good people to get better at your wrestling in particular. But when you're looking at where she struggled in her fights, I think conditioning is a huge part of it. And to your point, I just haven't seen her prove that her conditioning's gotten much better. I think that when you look at where is her upside, she has an ability to get fights to the ground and operate from on top. But we did see Rayanne Amanda, recover from being in some bad positions against Alencar. Alencar got her to the ground. She was able to retain a full guard. She was able to work back to good positions. So I just don't think that Alencar has shown the same kind of jiu-jitsu in MMA that Jacqueline Amarim has. And right, we see this in some of her regional fights where she's not finding the finish. She's not finding the submission. You look at Vanessa Demopoulos on the other side. A lot of her fights in the UFC are close. They're very tightly contested. That's why, minus 105, minus 115, it's like, yeah, that feels about, close to where this line should be. But I do think it's more likely that money will come in on Alencar because she's Brazilian and looks the part, jiu-jitsu world champion. But I always evaluate based on not just credentials, my evaluation of the tape as best I can if it exists. And I haven't seen a lot of great tape from Alencar yet in the UFC. Could that all change? Sure. And I'd be happy to, acknowledge her in that way. But Vanessa Demopoulos on the other side, the enthusiasm is always there. She's going to go out there. She's shown she can land 100 significant strikes. So if you want to just dance around with her on the feet, I don't think Alencar is a very competent striker at all. She throws some kicks. She attempts some offense. But frankly, it's very readable. It's very easy for opponents to see it, move out of the way, and counter her. And I think that that's something that Vanessa could have success with in this fight if it stays upright. So I don't have the greatest feel for this fight. Looking at the stats, like I wanted to see more from Vanessa. She has been running very hot in her results, but she's the kind of girl that I think she's going to fight hard for your dollar. If you look back at that Amorim fight, I bet Amorim. I said that Amorim was a good spot. I said she could submit her. But if you look back, like Amorim almost lost position going for that armbar and did have to grab the other. Like there's a weird exchange where Vanessa lost focus, and that's on her. And she honestly needs to take full accountability of that, because defend yourself at all times is the number one rule of fighting. But she literally stopped, looked at the ref, and said, she put her fingers in my gloves, which she obviously does on camera. And then she uses that to fall back to the armbar attempt. And the truth is, like, Vanessa shouldn't have gotten distracted, but she did by a foul, and it just went unacknowledged, right? And then after the fight, Emery's trying to be friends and shake her hand. She's like, dude, you just cheated. Like, no. So I think Vanessa was rightly pissed off there, but she has to learn the right lesson, which is stay locked in, stay dialed, no free mistakes on the ground here. But if she stays tight, diligent on the ground, makes no huge mistakes, I think Alencar is more likely to gas out within 5 minutes than Vanessa. So for all those reasons, it would be a Vanessa or pass situation for me. Probably not going to make the click unless I get plus money. But the other thing I will note, guys, I've said it before. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. Never fade a stripper in Las Vegas, Nevada, baby. I think she's 3-1 there. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, the only one to get one over on her, man. It's like this girl, Vanessa Demopoulos, has a good time of it in Las Vegas. I could be wrong. Maybe that Amorim fight was there as well, but she's done very well for herself in Las Vegas and way outperformed the number. Plus 300 dog versus Murata, cash it, right? Plus 200 XX against Jinh Yu Frey, cash it. So she's done it several times. Now you're not getting those big, generous plus money returns, but she's going to fight hard for your dollar. So if it goes to plus money, whether it's like Wizz said after round one, whether it's during fight week at some point, I'm going to be keeping my eye on this line, but it's just hard for me to justify laying any kind of chalk on either of these women, frankly. Neither of them have proven themselves to be head and shoulders above their UFC opposition. All right. That being said, my man, let's move along to this next fight. Very interesting fight. We got Victor Henry taking on Pedro Falcao. I'll kick this one right over to you, Wiz, because I have strong thoughts and feelings, and I'm curious what you think first.
Yeah, I'm just going to put it this way. I can't speak too much on this fight at all. Been involved a little bit with the Victor Henry camp, so all I'm going to say is Victor's fast. Victor, I think, will be the more durable fighter in this fight. I think overall, just the volume that Victor puts out makes a lot of people struggle. I do think he had a little bit of a unfortunate series of events in the last fight against Jourdain, where he was somewhat competitive in the striking, I would say. And yeah, I just can't speak too much. Now, on the Falcao side, dude has power, but I just think he's a little bit low volume. But yeah, no opinions on this fight. Can't speak too much.
No worries, my brother. Listen, I fucking love Victor Henry. If you guys have been watching this show for a long time, you know that. I bet him when he first came to the UFC. He was a plus 425 underdog against Raoni Barcelos. And I was like, this guy's going to throw a shit ton of volume. He's going to fight hard for your dollar. And all that turned out to be true. And honestly, I thought he had a little bit of a higher ceiling than where he's been at so far. And that's all right. He's 37, right? He got here a little bit late. The guy's still a great fighter. He's gone out there, put on a show every time. But I thought he was going to beat a Sunset. I just put it like that, right? I thought pretty cleanly he was going to beat a Sunset. I'm like, he's faster, throws more volume. And he kind of got caught in the Sunset game there, right? Kind of makes you wait, feint, hard feint, like gets you to kind of sit and react to him and not really throw as much. He's very good at that. But he kind of got him to dance along to his tune. And the other thing in that fight, he gave up a couple takedowns. I was like, all right, no sweat, but honestly, if you had said before the fight, like who's more likely to win the grappling exchanges there, I would have said Victor Henry, like running away with it and not disrespecting a Sunset. I was just like the speed, the dynamism, the ability to scramble. He didn't really show it in that fight. So I was like, okay, move along to the next one. And the Tony Gravely fight. I'm thinking we're finishing Tony Gravely at a very high clip, and it's not to disrespect Tony, who's a good fighter. It's to say that's how high I thought of Victor Henry. I'm like, this guy should be putting him in a guillotine. I was there in person when Patchy Mix guillotined this guy in a minute and a half. You know what I mean? It's just like, I thought we're going to see Victor Henry show his level tonight. And instead, what we saw is a very close and competitive fight. Obviously, what stands out about Victor all the time, his volume is incredible, right? I think he landed 142 significant strikes, doubled him up on volume. But it was still a split decision, and it's because he gave up some takedowns, gave up some bad grappling exchanges, almost found himself in trouble a few times. And even when he gets into his own offensive grappling, there's some times where he makes the wrong decision, getting too aggressive, and then guys are able to, peek out on him and have some success. And that's actually what we saw against Jourdain, because I truly believe that Jourdain was having some success on the feet. I thought we saw some smart adaptations from Victor. He grabbed a hold of the collar tie, fired some uppercuts. That's what we saw Gene Silva do to knock out Charles Jourdain. Only man to ever knock him out in 26 or 28 fights, pro and amateur. So we know that that's a way to get to him. He was landing some good uppercuts like that. But what I saw from Jourdain was the speed, the kicking, the dynamism on the outside. That was all really money. And so Victor was like, let me mix it up. Let me wrestle. Let me grapple this guy instead. And the problem was he put himself in a couple of really bad spots there. And we saw Jourdain go to that guillotine over and over. The problem I had with that fight is I didn't see the adaptation I wanted to from Victor, which is this guy's going for your front headlock all night. We got to be very cognizant of the front headlock the rest of the way. And then he finds himself in a ninja choke scenario. And by the way, what everybody always talks about is they're like, you got to pass to the side of the if it's a ninja choke, man, you got to roll like your life depends on it and try and break that grip because you're screwed, right? It's like, as long as you're in that choke, it's money. And I think that we saw Victor get a little too complacent, a little too comfortable in the grappling in that fight. So I say all that to say this. I think Pedro Falcao is being a little bit disrespected coming into this fight. And it's not because I think he can compete on the feet. If this is a stand-up fight, he's going to get fucked up, period. Because Victor throws too much volume. Pedro is not aggressive enough, in my view, on the feet. He likes to just go back, cage push you, look for the takedown, cage push you, look for the takedown. That's good because that's where he's good, right? He's good at wrestling and grappling. He's not very good at striking, in my view, in this meta, right? We're talking about the UFC now, not the regionals. Like, in order for him to have success against these guys, you got to be wrestling and grappling as far as I see it. But you look back at his tape, and he has gotten to some really good advantageous positions against guys. I truly believe that Victor Hugo is an underrated fighter. And I know people will laugh at that because he kind of has a gimmicky game, but he will knock you out on the feet. I've seen him knock out 185-pounders cold with one punch. Victor Hugo has power in his hands, and he spins, he goes crazy, he looks for offense from everywhere, and he will roll for leg locks. He can go in the grappling. He's not afraid of that at all. So all those things to say, Falcao went out there and really tried to make him wrestle and grapple. He really tried to get him in some bad situations, but he was too athletic, he was too dynamic, and he landed the bigger shots. When you look at how that fight played out, you don't expect him to put up as much volume as a guy like Victor, but he's dangerous as shit. Like, if you're in front of him for any extended period of time, he can fuck you up. And so for me, that was where he gets more tired as the fight goes on. There's some flaws to his game. Unprofessional, showed up like 10 pounds overweight one time. They're not going to keep you if you do that, but his skills were not the problem, right? It's like, he's a good fighter. So then I say to myself, all right, now you've got Falcao, who's 32 years of age. On the Contender Series back in the day, I bet him 3.5 units at minus 350 because I was so sure he was going to beat up Barnes. And he just worked that guy like a part-time job, no disrespect. So then he didn't get the contract, right? He goes back. This guy's a third-degree black belt from Novo União. And the reason that I knew him in depth was because I was going to bet the under 2.5 and a little bit of Filo sub against Ode Osbourne. And I was like, I really want to know what Ode's doing for his ground game. And he was being trained by Pedro Falcao. The problem is Pedro Falcao and Jafel Filo are both black belts under the same guy. And it's like, Jafel Filo is just better at grappling than you're going to get in one training camp or two training. It's like, that's tough sledding, right? And so when I look at where this fight is going to likely take place, I think that Victor is not afraid to mix it up in the grappling with almost anybody. And I think Pedro is going to grapple everybody he ever fights. Like, if he doesn't get knocked out in the first exchange, they're going to grapple. And the problem is, in my humble opinion, if you can get submitted by a guy like Jourdain from bottom, you can get submitted by a guy like Pedro from top. And I just think of a guy like Pedro as not very well known, right? Kind of flies under the radar, but lives in Vegas most of the time, training with these guys that are other high-level UFC professionals. And when he's not, he's at Novo União in Brazil with a bunch of good guys. And their team has kind of thinned out over time. But like all the guys he came up with, Filo and Aldo, and it's like they were killers, right? They were a great team. And even the guys that are still competing now, Jafel Filo is like another unheralded guy that was this close to submitting Makayev, who's undefeated. It's like, that's how good their grappling is, right? He almost knee barred the guy who's impossible to submit. And like, now you're like, okay, what about this Pedro Falcao kid? Like, he's 32. He's not an old man. And he's getting another crack, another opportunity here. I just feel like people are giving him no due. And coming into this week, man, I was surprised by some of the numbers. So I'm going to leave it there. I have nothing but love and respect for Victor Henry, but for me, this is a dog or pass situation at the current odds. All right, brother. Next up, we got Rhys McKee taking on Daniel Frunza. And I think that this is another interesting fight. It's a tricky fight. When I look at these two guys, you know, I think Daniel Frunza is the more dangerous guy. He hits like a truck. He throws down the middle. He's super aggressive. You take this guy down, he's trying to elbow a hole in your head. There's not really a lot of comfortable spots against this guy. But can he get hurt on the comeback? Oh, yeah, he can. He's been hurt in several fights. Can he be exploited in the grappling? Oh, yes, he can. We've seen it in several fights. And when you look at this guy's overall game, he's in a lot of wild, chaotic exchanges. Rhys McKee throws a good amount of volume, normally goes out there, competes with guys, can push him around, can hold him against the fence. 0-4 in the UFC against a pretty serious level of competition, all things considered. And the guys he's lost to, most of them have winning records in the UFC. They're guys that have been around, kept a job. Daniel Frunza, on the other hand, he doesn't have a UFC level win to speak of, but he's a dangerous guy. You know, both these guys around the same age. As far as I'm concerned, Rhys McKee probably has small upside here, but I'm worried I'm going to lay this plus 130 or whatever, and then he gets knocked out in the first round. I will say right now, unless market activity changes, I can't click Rhys McKee because he looks like the mush of the week. Like, I'm talking about 80 and 90% of reported early bets coming in on the Rhys McKee side. If the line flips, oh, well, now we're having a different conversation. They're respecting that money that's coming in. Right now, it seems like everybody's betting him like a going out of business sale, and odds makers are not very interested in that action. So that's something that's a little bit curious to me. I'm going to check what the current odds are because I obviously was looking at this a bit earlier. But taking a peek, yeah, Rhys McKee has been sitting around this plus 130 mark, guys. I'm seeing plus 125 at the opener, plus 130 at the current market. It's gone up, it's gone down. It's kind of floated around, but what it hasn't done is react hard. Like 90% of people out there are betting on Rhys McKee. And the one thing he hasn't done is given us proof of concept. Something I talk about all the time. Have you beaten a UFC level guy? Jai Herbert, like 10 years ago. I'm half kidding, but it's like, that's his only UFC level win. Justin Burlinson, he's knocking on the door, right? He's like a Contender Series alum type of guy. But this for me just feels like an honest fight. So I would want a plus 175, a plus 200, I think, to get involved in Rhys McKee, because otherwise I just feel like this is the kind of fight where if I bet him and he gets sparked out in the first round, I have nothing but myself to blame because Frunza is a big hitter. He throws straight. Like Rhys McKee is like a little bit of an awkward guy, and he gets hurt in most of his fights, but he does stick around, right? Angelusa, one judge scored round 3 for Angelusa. You should retire. You should never judge another fight again. An embarrassment. Angelusa is facing the wrong direction with his hands up. My man had no idea where Rhys McKee even was. He's like doing defense against somebody that didn't exist. My man was on Dream Street. So I think people haven't given Rhys McKee any credit for the fact that he's tough. He goes out there and fights hard. Chidi Nzechukwu, putting away a lot of guys. Didn't put him away. So you say to yourself, man, this guy deserves a little credit. He's tough as an old leather boot. He'll come out there and give you an honest night's work. But can he win fights at this level? Never proven it. So that's why it's hard for me to make the click. Ultimately, I lean slightly towards Rhys McKee and unders, but I don't feel great about this fight. From a betting standpoint, less likely to see a click from me here. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the same sentiment in terms of just the matchup overall. I think both guys are going to be able to land, specifically Daniel Frunza. I mean, we've seen Rhys McKee's striking defense, and it's horrible. Dude doesn't keep his hands up, just tall man defense all the way. And if Daniel Frunza keeps hitting the button, I do expect McKee to go out at some point because the dude is wild and he will do anything to get the knockout. And then on the other hand, McKee can land some sneaky counters here. So rather than playing like a money line side, because I don't think there really is any value on either way, I'm actually looking at the under 2.5 at minus 120. I haven't played it just yet, but I do think violence angle is the right way to go in this fight, where I can see both guys getting knocked out early. I can see a couple of different sequences where we see finishes within 2.5 rounds. So for me, I do like the violence angle a lot. I think someone's getting finished here, and I don't even think we need to pay the extra 40 cents of juice for the fight doesn't go. Because if it doesn't finish within the first 2.5, I don't expect it to finish late. Both these guys, I mean, Frunza, we haven't really seen him extended too often. McKee at least has shown the toughness and has shown to be able to push through it, which maybe I can give him some round 3 finish equity. But
yeah, he did almost get loose out of there, but his finishing
yeah,
instincts were piss poor.
yeah, I I was shitting bricks there because I had Angelus. I was shitting some big bricks.
I had Reese McKee. I was sick to my stomach that he didn't start fighting until the third, but
Yeah, I'm glad I got away with that
no,
one.
Ange looked so much faster and more dynamic in the first 2 rounds. He was fucking him up early.
I was just surprised how he didn't put him out with all those strikes in the first 2 rounds and just gasses out. And all to say, I like violence. Under 2.5 should be in the books.
I lean the same way here, my man. I think there's a lot of ways this could end. The one thing I'll note, I think Frunza is like an enthusiastic guy off his back. I mentioned him throwing up elbows and being super aggressive, but like, what was he actually doing from the bottom position? Reverse grapevines and elbows to the head. That it seems like that's my man's bottom game. So if you know some guard passes or submissions or things like that, I think you'll probably have a lot of success. But on the other hand, you know, a lot of times when guys are getting Frunza to the ground, they're hurting him in order to get him there. So is it like the guy just gets hurt and then you can submit him, or is it that his grappling is just terrible? For me, I lean towards his grappling is not very good, but also I would like to see it while he's grappling sober, so to speak. I do think that in this kind of fight, though, you know, they list 1 knockdown for Coetzee in that Interim Contender Series fight. As far as I'm concerned, I think I saw 3 knockdowns. They beat the absolute tar out of each other. I think Frunza knocked him down twice. Like, this is from my recollection of the fight. So stats keepers and I disagree, but Frunza did a lot of damage in that fight. He hurt Coetzee bad twice. That's a fact. Like whether he dropped him or not, I can't really remember, but I know for sure that he hurt him twice. So Frunza has power. He hurts people. He looks to be aggressive, but on the other side, Reese McKee has put away some decent guys. So I kind of like that violence angle instead of getting married to a side here, because either one of these guys could leave you crying in your coffee. That's for sure. Next up, my man, we got Dione Barbosa taking on Diana Belbita. And listen, man, I think the same attributes that got Diane Barbosa in trouble. Let me pull up the record here so I make sure I get the right name. Against Ernesta Cadescate are exactly what's going to get her the win inside the distance here against Diana Belbita. And it's that she's extremely aggressive on the ground. She was able to get a back take. She was able to get rear naked choke attempts, armbar attempts in multiple rounds in that fight. And I think that, frankly, Diana Belbita is one of the most exploitable grapplers in the UFC. And so it's no disrespect to her. I think on the feet, she's a decent enough fighter, but she's had 24 pro fights. I think she looks almost as bad as she did when she started on the ground. You know, you look at the Molly McCann fight, frankly, she got worse. It was a regression over time. I do think Molly made some small improvements, but Belbita's enthusiasm and willingness to fight hard through positions and compete was gone. And so Molly made short work of her. I had the 20-1 sub in round 1 in that fight. So I think that Molly McCann exposed what was already a huge flaw in her game. And I don't think she wants to compete as a professional anymore. I think the opposite is true of Diane Barbosa, who is 32 years of age, but still working her way up to professional ranks. And this is a must-win fight for her. She's coming off 2 losses, but they match made her against tough girls. Ernesta Cadesquete, a decent enough opponent. A girl who's long, awkward, throws a huge amount of volume for women's MMA. And on the other side, Miranda Maverick, a perennial top contender in this division, a girl who's been in the top 15, a girl who's gone life and death with, you know, top 5 girls in the division, close split decision type territory. I think Diane Barbosa has made a fine account of herself so far in the UFC, but this is a winnable fight, right? Some of those other fights have been tough. I thought the Carrascate fight was winnable. She made a couple of small mistakes. She lost the fight being too aggressive. In this fight, I think aggression is her friend. I think she's going to use that aggression to get this fight done with before 15 minutes is all said and done. What about you, Wiz?
Yes, spot on. I wish I could do my actual, plant the, flag post. 3 weeks in a row we've been winning. Last week we hit the KO and KO1 for our guy Atiba. And this week's plant the flag play is going to be Diana Barbosa inside the distance. I think she's just going to be able to land takedowns here at will. Belbita's takedown defense has been pretty terrible, to say the least, and her ground game is non-existent. In her interviews this week, she's been mentioning about how she doesn't really care if she wins or loses this fight. She's just happy that she made it. This girl, I believe, has retired already twice. Big red flag. So yeah, for me, I can only look towards Deonia Barbosa, the more aggressive fighter, the fighter that's going to look to take the fight to the ground, and the fighter that can fish submissions wherever this fight goes. But yeah, inside the distance, that's this week's plant the flag play. I'm ready.
So funny. I watched back Barbosa Carrascate on mute, and I thought that she lost that fight. That's hilarious. She actually won that fight.
Yeah, she won that
and it
fight.
was a really close fight, but she ended up getting the win. And I'm looking back, it says unanimous decision. Ernesta Carrascate, you go file an appeal, girl. You got highway robbed there. You know what I'm saying? But I kid, right? It was a close fight. She had the more dominant grappling positions, got outlanded by a little bit in that spot, ended a couple rounds on her back. That's why I thought she lost, but she was able to sneak one out there. I do think in this fight, her likelihood of finishing is a lot higher. Ernesta Carrascate, very high on the enthusiasm meter. And I think Diana Belbita is the exact opposite. So. All right, my brother. Next up, we got Davey Dangerous Grant taking on Daniel Willie Cat Santos. How do you feel about this one, my brother Wiz?
This is it's been a very tough fight for me. I've been going back and forth. Davey Grant, someone that on paper you look at him, almost 40 years old, getting up there in age, especially for the bantamweight division, going up against someone who's going to be pretty much 10 years younger than him. So we pull up that stat again. I believe it's over 67% now. I don't know. I have a bad feeling. Like, Daniel Santos is a guy that brings the typical shoot-to-box Diego Lima style to the cage, just throws chaos, and I feel like that might be to his detriment in this fight. He leaves himself pretty wide open in certain situations when he's throwing his right hand. And Davey Grant has some nasty counters. And the one thing about Davey Grant is he will not back down from a fight. But at the same time, we've seen Davey Grant dropped a couple of times in the UFC. So it's going to be a fight where whoever lands that first blow might be running away with it, because then momentum just flips on their side. I think that Daniel Santos can hurt Davey Grant on the feet. I think Davey Grant can hurt Daniel Santos on the feet. Part of me wants to play violence on this fight, and let me check and see where this is at right now, because I was taking a look at it a little bit earlier in the week. We look at the unders for this fight, and under 2.5 is at plus 165. And I kind of wish this was more in the lines of plus 190, and I would have definitely taken a stab. I don't know. I still might end up on it. I do think that this fight is violent, and wherever this fight goes, there will be finishes for either guy. I think Santos can sub Davey Grant. I think both of them can knock each other out. Yeah, tough matchup. I've had a really tough time for this one, but it's going to be a banger of a fight. This is in line for fight of the night, potentially.
Man, I feel the exact same way in that I can't get a great beat on this fight. I'm always waiting for the bottom to fall out on Davey Grant because I love the guy, and like it just seems like he's due to fall off soon, right? At 39 years of age in this division. But frankly, like I think since COVID era, like Davey Grant has been clearly showing up on sauce, and I respect him for it, right? My man is out there still doing the damn thing with these bantamweights who are also sauce to the tits for the vast majority of them. And he's 39 years of age, right? So how's he going to compete? Got to keep himself in the gym, right? So in order to do that, in order to facilitate his recovery and everything else, I think Davey Grant shows up sauce to every one of these fights. And I also think that the guy is one of the most enthusiastic fighters in the game. Like I always talk about that as a metric. Some people are about that life. Like they don't care, man. They just want to fight. They're not afraid to fight anybody, anytime, any place, and figure it out. And some other guys are very calculated. They're career people. They're sportsmen. You know, they're thinking about everything and trying to get the right matchup. And then Davey Grant will fight anybody, man. He'll fight you in the parking lot of the UFC. So as far as I'm concerned, like at 39, a lot of guys, I'm like, I can't even consider it, right? And Davey is not that because, dude, his fight against Daniel Marcos, like how many guys are fighting that close with Daniel Marcos? It's like a lot of guys struggle with that guy. A lot of guys really can't keep up with him, can't compete with him. And Davey was out there arguably getting robbed, right? It's like Davey fights very close with everybody. And the problems I have with him, he's not going to be a marketing ace. The UFC brand machine's never going to get behind this guy, but he's going to go out there and give everybody an honest scrap. Now you got a Santos come in here. If he was, showing 8-10 submissions on his record, I'm like, all right, forget about it. He's going to take him down. He's going to exploit him. Davey Grant used to be a mark on the ground, and people haven't seen that for a long time, but this kid's going to expose it. He's a Brazilian. Nah, he likes to go swing and bang on the feet most often. He can mix in a takedown here or there, but I don't know that he's going to go out there and push that grappling heavy game plan on Davey Grant. And so will he be a little more sharp, a little more technical? I can see that. I mean, Davey's kind of a wild banger. He does some technical things. He does some things where he throws left hands with straight arms and tries to kill you. I wouldn't say many boxing coaches are recommended, but it works, man. He put Jonathan Martinez on a highlight reel with that. So I think when you look at Davey Grant, he's an effective fighter. He will fight hard till the bitter end. Asuncao is kind of outpointing him and doing his thing and moving in and out. And by the end of it, whether he had to cheat by hook, by crook, any way you want to do it, Davey Grant put him away. And, that's all she wrote, right? They still gave him the 50,000. So when you look at Davey, it's like, he goes out there and plays for keeps, man. And he's going to go out there and put his chin on the line and give you a chance to kill him, but he's going to get some back. And, one thing that struck me about this is the stats kind of point to Davey Grant winning this fight, right? And so the things that you hesitate with, the age, huge factor. But on the other side, who's the bigger guy? It's going to be Davey, right? He's going to have an inch of height. He's going to have 2 inches of reach. Maybe he keeps this guy pawing back a little bit with that jab. Who throws out a little bit more volume? Historically, that's Davey, and he's got a much bigger sample size as well. By the way, guys, outlanded 7 of his last 9 UFC opponents on significant strikes. So Davey Grant's going to be out there throwing them damn things, swinging them, right? He's going to give you some leather over the course of 15 minutes. That's a fact. And it's like, all right, what is Daniel Santos going to do? His defense is not very good. He's going to walk forward. He's going to attempt offense. So for me, it's kind of like swing and bang, brawling type scenarios. And in those kind of fights, tend to lean towards a dogger pass situation for me. The things I don't like are the age, but again, Davey Grant is as experienced as it gets. Guy goes out in the trenches with anybody, not afraid of a battle. And we've seen Santos get hurt, right? He had to rally against John Castaneda to win that fight. So I think that he's a guy that's very talented, but where is he at right now? Heck, if I know. And, if other people have better ideas, I'm curious. But this guy, Davey Grant, the other thing about him, he's active, right? He stays in there. He's willing to fight you every couple months. So for me, there's a lot of positives about Davey Grant with a sneaky 14-7 record. He's much better than that record would indicate. He's been showing he can compete with top 15 guys on the fringes. But we also know that, you saw that Marlon Chito Vera rematch, right? There's times where he levels out against some of these guys as well. So we'll have to see how he performs this weekend. But the enthusiasm looks to be there. The guy's in great shape, training all the time on Instagram. So for me, I think Davey Grant's going to bring another solid outing, right? And whether or not that's enough in this day and age, I don't know, but I think he's going to be prepared to go to battle. Next up, my man, we got a fascinating fight where Louis Gurule is taking on Osbourne. And man, from the second they announced Gurule against Nick Piccinini, I started doing my research and I was like, fuck, I hate this fight for Nick Piccinini. Not that he couldn't win it, but I was like, this guy is not easy, right? Like they signed him to fight Jack Duffy, who's a tough guy. And then they signed him to fight Louis Gurule, who might even be tougher than Duffy. I was like, oh, goodness gracious, like from a rock to a hard place, right? I think that Gurule, he's an excellent wrestler. I went back and watched his high school matches because I wanted to get a feel, how's this guy going to do against Piccinini? And man, Piccinini's so good at wrestling. I was like, this guy is good. He's not easy to beat. He's got good scrambles since he was a high school wrestler, right? This guy is about that life. And then you watch how he performs as a mixed martial artist. In the 4th round, he's out there digging out a submission in a tough fight, right? You see this guy go out there, get taken down, work right back up to his feet, right back on you with the strikes. In the fight against Piccinini, he's getting taken down multiple times. He's landing shots on the way down. He's landing shots on the way up. He's finding his opportunities to land some punches on you, chip away at you over time. Can he get hurt? Yeah, and that's, for me, the biggest liability for him coming into this fight. On the other side, though, can Osbourne get hurt? Yes, he can. Can he be out-grappled? Summarily. It's happened to him a multitude of times now in the UFC. And again, it's not to say that he's a bad grappler. He's losing to good grapplers. But he is a suspect grappler at this level, right? You look at the guys, number one, he's getting submitted via knee bar on the regional scene. Red flag, okay? Huge one, right? That guy didn't go on to have some magical career. He's not a jiu-jitsu ace. It's like, okay, big red flag. Then we see in the UFC, is Asuel Mabayev submitting every guy and the next guy? No, but he submitted Ode because he got multiple opportunities to dominate him on the ground, right? He got to his back multiple times, pushing, pulling, going this way, that way, forcing him into bad reactive scrambles, by the way. And if you look at what Luis Gurule does, he likes to go out there and stand and strike. But if you just stand and strike with him, and you're Ode Osbourne, I think eventually he's going to chip away at your cardio. I think he's going to back you up. I think he's going to start landing to the body. And I think Ode is a guy that starts off as one fighter and then becomes a different fighter over time. I think he slows down. I think that he loses confidence if he doesn't have early success. And I also think that Gurule, he's the kind of guy that I could see losing a first round, biting down on the mouthpiece and rallying back to come finish you in round 2 and 3. And I think the opposite is true for Ode. I think he can come out, win the first round here, look dominant, beat him up a little bit, maybe even drop him with a shot, dancing around, looking great. But just like against Ronaldo Rodriguez, who, by the way, got exposed over the weekend, right? Got exposed, not for being a guy who's, not there yet. Major flaws, right? And so Ode snatched defeat from the jaws of victory in that fight. Major red flag for me. I don't see it. So I think Luis Gurule is going to win this fight. I think the price is a little prohibitive for a debutant, but ultimately, the prices even on some of the props kind of suck. But if I had to click something this week, it would be a big plus money number on Gurule by sub, and I'll leave it there. What about you, brother Wiz?
Yeah, spot on with that Ode Osbourne breakdown. I mean, the guy has shown to be a completely different fighter in round 1 than the rest of the fight. And you kind of see it in the Ronaldo Rodriguez fight specifically, where dude was about to knock him out on multiple occasions and somehow, some way allowed him to survive. That's poor finishing instincts right there, right off the bat. And then when you pair it with his poor takedown defense, I mean, it's going to be tough. Now, the one thing about Gurule is he will like to strike you more often than not. Hasn't really shot takedowns consistently in his past few fights, which could be a little bit of a red flag here if you're counting on the takedowns. I do think in the striking he can compete, but the 9-inch reach advantage that Ode is going to have might serve to his advantage here if he can keep him at bay. But Gurule is a type that will pressure you against the cage, and he'll try to crash into the pocket and make things a little bit dirtier. So I do think that is a good way of countering that reach advantage. But ultimately, I think the path of least resistance for him is going to be the wrestling and then ground and pound. Over and over, I think at some point he'll be able to advance position on Ode Osbourne, a gassed Ode Osbourne, maybe in round 3, and find a finish. Let's take a look and see what that round 3 finish is actually for Gurule, now that I'm talking myself into it, kind of. Because I do see a world where he gasses Ode out after a huge adrenaline dump, maybe drops Gurule in the first round.
I'm seeing plus 800 on Bet Online, as high as plus 1,000.
Yeah, and if you want to take it a step further, if you don't want the sub, if you take the round 3 knockout for Gurule, that's plus 1,100. Round 3 sub, plus 2,200. All good numbers. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research, but I do think that Gurule is the rightful favorite here. Should he be this wide of a favorite? Probably not. I would line this more closer to around like minus 180, minus 175, somewhere around there. But yeah, I think Gurule gets another win here, stays undefeated.
Yeah, the last thing I'll mention is eventually your record is what it says you are. Like, you are what your record says you are, right? And Ode Osbourne's 12-8 as a professional. The guy's barely clinging to a winning record as a pro, much less in the UFC. He's underwater in the UFC. And Gurule, on the other hand, 10-0 as a professional. He's got a lot of confidence behind him. And here's the other thing, guys. Works day in and day out with Brandon Royval, who I remember before Contender Series was singing this guy's praises, saying he's one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in our room. He's an excellent wrestler. Nobody can go with this guy in the room. His pace is crazy. I like all those things against a guy like Ode Osbourne hugely, just in terms of general dynamics. So the size is a factor. Ode's got a lot of UFC experience. He's a dangerous first-round finisher. All those things are true. But honestly, I think Gurule is live to finish in all rounds. I like this guy because he's intense. He comes out with a certain amount of je ne sais quoi. Landed 7 strikes per minute in a fight where he was getting systemically out-wrestled by Nick Piccinini, and that tells you a lot of what you need to know about his output, his motor, and his enthusiasm. And I think all those things are things that bother Ode Osbourne. All right, my brother. I know that this is a fight that will be very near and dear to your heart. I'm going to kick this over to you first for anything that you want to say about this one. You can tell the people anything that you want, and then you kick it back to me when you want, brother.
I'll say very little because this fight. So I've been working with Torres Finney over his 3 Contender Series fights. This will be our 4th fight working together. I know the guy really well. One of the nicest people out there. And our guy in the chat, Evan, met him with me when we went out to Vegas last time out in November. Shout out to Evan. We're going to be going together to Vegas this weekend too. So all full steam in support of Torres Finney. And I just think we have a really good breakdown and read on this guy. So I think Torres Finney all the way. And I might be very biased. Some people might not like it. He is the favorite, and I think he should be a minus 1,000. That's all. I'll just keep it there.
My brother. So we've got a little bit of bias in the house for our guy Wizz MMA, rightfully so. Because when you look at this fight, he's working with one of these guys. If you're ever involved in a camp, training, coaching, anything like that, with anybody, it's hard. This is like the fight business, right? The hurt business. So more than anything else, you're wishing for people's health and safety, and also their success, right? And I think a guy like Torres Finney, a lot of people feel the same way, even that aren't in his corner, right? The guy just seems like a likable guy, a guy that's easy to get behind. He went on the Contender Series. Dana, in classic Dana fashion, was an asshole, and kind of run him down a little bit. You can't beat anybody here, and all these things that he had to say to him. And they told him, stay ready for tough. Didn't work out. Gets back on Contender Series and did the damn thing, right? Beat Cam Roston. Cam Roston's got maybe the most awkward body type in the division. Massive, long limbs, awkward, kind of hard to pass his guard. It was a tough, weird fight, but I thought Torres Finney ultimately showed his heart, his grit, his determination in that one. And then when you look at the next fight against Lerone, he was like plus 350 to win the fight in round 1, and he brought the hammer down, made it look very easy. So I think when you look at this kind of fight, Valentin is a weird guy. He's had awkward moments in a lot of his fights. I thought McCrory was kind of whooping his ass on The Ultimate Fighter, and then he got him in a grappling sequence, and McCrory looked like a fish out of water in that one, right? So shout out to my Irish brethren. He's got to go back to the wrestling and the grappling room and workshop some of that. But you've seen Valentin get in some of these really awkward positions. And the thing for me that kind of soured me on him is that I do like his aggression. I like his enthusiasm. But the thing I don't like, it's the Ian Gary effect. When did guys start taking the back 100% in mixed martial arts, getting fully locked in rear naked chokes and not finishing them? Like, I just don't understand what I'm witnessing. And this guy was on the back, doing great in the Ultimate Fighter finale, lost the position. And you just see, like, he was submission over position. He was a little bit flailing and awkward in his transitions. And I kind of think that in that fight, it showed that he's a very explosive guy to start, but you start to take something out of him and maybe he's not the same guy. You start to wear him down, break him down. He's lost before. He's been finished before. And Torres Finney's riding all the confidence, the momentum of an undefeated fighter. So we talk about it all the time. When you're making a UFC debut, there could be jitters, there could be nerves, it could be a hard thing to do. But on the other side, it's not like Valentin's got some deep well of experience at the UFC level. He's fought some UFC level guys outside the UFC. It went very poorly for him in those instances, and we'll see how it fares for him on Saturday. So fun fight, interesting fight. I will say, he did a decent enough job on that first fight that he had on The Ultimate Fighter. He looked like the favorite to win it at the time. Everybody was very hyped on this guy. And I was expecting a little bit more in that Ultimate Fighter finale. I don't know how much success Loader is going to have long-term. We'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, I'm leaning towards Torres Finney getting the job done on the ground in this matchup. I'll leave it there. All right, man. Next up, we got Gerald Meerschaert versus Brad Tavares. And I'm going to lead us off on this one, Wiz, because I'm a Gerald Meerschaert truther. I have been for a long time. I fucking love GM3. He's a cool-ass dude. And here's the other thing about GM3. He is the king of American Jiu-Jitsu. Show me another. This guy will knock you out and then hop on your neck to claim another one for American Jiu-Jitsu, baby. What a guy. This guy is one of my favorite fighters to watch. And here's where I think the market is not understanding Gerald Meerschaert for a long time. Two things. Number one, I think he's an underrated kickboxer. And number two, I think that Rene de Ridder is an underrated grappler still. And here's why. I'm going to just be very, very brief with my synopsis. Rene de Ridder, I've seen him pass Andre Galvao's guard. That might not mean anything to you. If you know jiu-jitsu, you know how great Andre Galvao is, multiple-time ADCC champion. He was passing his guard by the end of a 10-minute go because Rene de Ridder is huge, he's strong, and he can actually grapple. Not grapple for UFC, not grapple for mixed martial arts, grapple for grappling, for being a very, very good grappler against other very, very good grapplers. That's how good he is, okay? Gerald Meerschaert is one of the best black belts in the middleweight division. Why do I say that? There's a lot of proof of concept behind that. Gerald Meerschaert has been submitted, I think, twice in a professional career that's like 50 pro fights. The guy is very difficult to get one over on the mat. By the way, submits a ton of guys, right? So he gets a lot of submissions. He's very difficult to submit. And he got submitted by Rene de Ridder. Why? He fatigued. And normally he fatigues others. Rene de Ridder is huge. He's awkward. He's a gangly man, and he really knows how to grapple. So Gerald, for the first time maybe in his career, was deadpan exhausted and had nothing left to give. It's very rare to see him like that. So you could say maybe at 37 years of age, he just doesn't have it anymore. I truly believe Rene de Ridder would submit Brad Tavares today. And Brad Tavares has never been submitted before. But that's how I view Rene de Ridder. I think he's too big, too strong, too athletic, too close to his prime, too talented. He would eventually find a way to get him down and submit him, in my view. And that's because Brad Tavares is now 37 years of age. And I believe he's a guy that never had great killer instinct. And nowadays, his killer instinct, I don't know if if you asked him right now, Brad Tavares isn't mad at anybody. The man just goes through life chilling, right? He's a surfer. I don't think Brad Tavares, you could get a rise out of him if you called him a bad person. Like, fuck you, Brad Tavares. He'd be like, hey, man, I appreciate you. God bless you. Like, the guy just seems like the most chill, down-to-earth dude of all time. No problem, but this is a cage fight, right? This is a cage fight. This is a fist fight for money. And the one thing I'll tell you about Gerald Meerschaert is everybody told me Makhmud Muradov's going to do everything but be nice to him, right? And then what happened? Makhmud Muradov's the guy who wanted to go home. And it was from getting kicked in the body like 10 times in a row. And he was like, man, I'm really starting to get fatigued. I would really like to not get kicked in the body anymore. He's like half shooting takedowns on Gerald Meerschaert. You know what I'm saying? Like, you watch Gerald Meerschaert out there and he moves slow as molasses. My man is just stuck in the mud. But when he gets grappling, he gets moving fast, and he knows where he's going to go. That's when he's beautiful on the ground. But on the feet, he's effective. And this is not about a prettiness contest. It's about an effectiveness contest. The judges are trying to evaluate who's the more effective fighter. And in my opinion, right now, based on their tape, I think Gerald Meerschaert is a more effective fighter than Brad Tavares. I think Brad Tavares is a fine fighter. He's a very good kickboxer in his day, an elite anti-grappler. 3 up and 3 down on Brad Tavares money lines. I bet him against Omari Makhmedov. I bet him against Antonio Carlos Jr. 2 guys that are excellent grapplers. Now he's starting to get taken down. The illustrious takedown event, now he's starting to get taken down, give up bad positions. I said RoboCop was going to submit him. He didn't, but he could have, right? He beat him up until he fell over, and then he just beat him up more because RoboCop forgot how to do jiu-jitsu at a certain point. But everybody else that is going out there and attempting to take this guy down is starting to have success now. Jin Young Park is starting to take him down and have success now. And I like the Iron Turtle. I respect him a lot. Younger than GM3, a little bit more spry, but he's smaller, right? He's not as physical. And I look at GM3 as a guy who is effective with his striking, a guy who's not going to fuck off for 15 minutes, and a guy who's got all the grappling upside in this fight by a massive margin. And he's a plus 200 underdog against a guy who I don't think has looked good in 5 years, against a guy who you compare common opponents, Bruno Silva. GM3, and again, was he sick? Maybe he was. He beat Bruno Silva back and forth this way and that, every which way but loose, and then submitted him out of mercy when he knocked him dead. So that's what I saw from him. Meanwhile, Brad Tavares is getting cleaned up in the first round. And so you could say different versions of Bruno Silva. Fair play. Again, where's the confidence coming on the Brad Tavares side? Did he look great against Chris Weidman? Guys, I said at the time, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a wrestler. Chris Weidman is in my New York State wrestling books, a champion. Looking up to this guy since I'm a high school athlete, right? I told everybody it's the worst matchup they could give him in the division. They're begging him to retire. He's not going to get takedowns. He's going to get cleaned up. And what happened in that fight? It becomes somewhat competitive. Weidman on one leg after surgical reconstruction, where they're doing ESPN documentaries about how he even gets back to the cage. Brad Tavares shows no killer instinct, no vitriol, no hatred in his heart. My man doesn't want to hurt nobody. And this is not the Rory McDonald business, right? I love Rory McDonald, one of my favorite all-time fighters. But when he's telling you he's having prayers with Jesus and doesn't want to hurt anybody in the middle of a cage fight, that is when the experiment's over, and all we should do is wish for him to retire. And I love Brad Tavares, but I think that he's just cashing checks these days. And if he knocks out GM3, I'll take my hat off to the guy and say, hey, thank you, man. Like, you found something in you. You dug back. You found that killer. But it's not there. I haven't seen it in years. And, like, GM3, you could say anything else you want except that this guy didn't want to win fights. Because when you go out there and you take a little bit of a ass whooping from Edmund and then you make him pay, make him quit, that'll change your life. That'll change your career. GM3 can still go 50,000 at a time when he puts you on the ground and makes you give up. So I just think GM3, free Kane, he's coming to come collect. And I don't think any Shaka bras are going to save you, man. So I love Brad Tavares. Nothing but respect for both these guys, two legends of the octagon. But you got to pick one, and I'm going Gerald Meerschaert, baby.
Great breakdown. Brad Tavares has been a staple in the division, and we've known him for his elite takedown defense and just the ability to take a lot of damage and to, still be there, dish out volume until the end. Up until recently, as you mentioned, we were starting to see Brad Tavares get hurt. We started to see him get dropped and started to see him get taken down. And that all could be as a result of age. It could be as a result of just, lack of training, both. And you look at a guy in Gerald Meerschaert who is still competitive in his fights. Although lost the last one against Reinier de Ridder, who, in all honesty, should have made that fight look a little bit easier than it was. And Meerschaert had a lot of moments in that fight early on specifically. What's to say he can't do that in this fight? I think one of his most underrated tools is that body kick. Because here's the thing. He can throw that at free will, knowing that nobody wants to go to the ground with me. No one's going to try and catch that kick and take me down. And if they do, great. That's where I wanted to end up anyways. So he's going to keep blasting that body kick. And the one thing about Brad Tavares, very tight in the defense when it comes to head strikes, but leaves his body wide open. So I think that kick's going to land at will here. And I do think that Meerschaert early on can land a takedown or two. And what's to say that Brad Tavares cannot be put in some pretty dangerous positions on the mat against someone like Gerald Meerschaert? You're giving us a big plus money price tag on the better grappler, the better wrestler. And given that both fighters are pretty much same age, almost on the dot, their birthdays are three days apart, same measurables, and then you have the guy with 3.5 inches of reach, you kind of have to go with Gerald Meerschaert. Obviously, the striking advantage lies with Brad Tavares here, but I'm not even going to say it's by much at all. We've seen Gerald Meerschaert struggle against power hitters and not volume guys when it comes to the striking. And we know that Brad Tavares does not really chop the legs all that often. So all those reasons lead me to the belief that Gerald Meerschaert's going to come out there and give you a honest performance. And at plus 200, close to plus 200, you're going to have to take it. So give me GM3 money line. I'm also looking into the plus 3.5 because I do think all the finishing equities on the side of Meerschaert. I don't really see Tavares finding a finish here. So even if we get to the judges' scorecards and Meerschaert wins at least one of the rounds on all three judges' scorecards, we cash that plus 3.5. So give me GM3.
Here's one last thing I'm going to leave you with, folks. If you look back, Gerald Meerschaert lost a competitive decision, split decision to Andre Petroski. He got dropped in that fight. He got taken down twice and controlled for 2 minutes. He outlanded him 76 to 57 on significant strikes. And Petroski is a young guy, a guy who you can love or hate his style, right? I'm not a huge fan of the guy. I've said that many times. But in terms of does he win fights in the UFC? Yeah, he does. And he's pretty effective, right? It's not been that easy to get one over on him. If you don't knock him out, he typically beats you over the course of 15. So that's the kind of guy that he is. He gets tired, but he has normally more points on the board when it's all said and done, right? He outboxed Petroski while moving at half his speed. It was so funny. I'm telling you, if you want to watch somebody move through molasses and still be an effective fighter, Gerald Meerschaert, the king of American Jiu-Jitsu, that's your man. As we move to the next fight, guys, I want to say 2 quick things. Smash the like button for my guy, Dan at Half the Battle. Huge fan of his work. Appreciate the support, my brother. Appreciate everybody who's rocking with us in the chat, guys. We got 60 people rocking with us live right now, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you don't mind, like, subscribe, and tell us what you guys think about these fights in the chat as we go along here. We'll make sure to reference you guys on the show as well. That being said, guys, let's move along to the next fight. This is a fight I'll be very brief on. Kennedy Nzechukwu against Martin Buday. You got a professional video game player against a guy who's been kicking around the UFC for a long time. He's been hot. He's been cold. But if you ask me who's the more talented guy, not close. It's Kennedy Nzechukwu. I think Martin Buday is a fine heavyweight. I think that when you look at most heavyweights, If they were to go down to light heavyweight, their skills would not be sufficient, right? And that's not to say light heavyweight is this, oh, what an apex of skills in the sport, but the athleticism is different. The speed is a little bit different, right? Most guys are a little bit more baseline technical. You look at a guy like Martin Buday, he's a clinch fighter with a decent Kimura, and I don't think there's much more to write home about, period, point blank. When you look at his defense, sometimes it's freezing and just allowing himself to get hit a million times in a row. Not a great look, right? Kennedy Nzechukwu, on the other hand, I truly believe was cutting way too much weight at 205. So he's getting hit a bunch of times in the head of a dehydrated brain, and he's falling over. Then you look at some of these fights at heavyweight. Obviously, he hasn't really been challenged, right? He hasn't really been pushed. He's fighting Chris Barnett, blows his own leg on the way to the cage. It's like, okay, tough sledding. But you look at where Kennedy's at. He's got real ability to win via submission standing, right? He's got front headlock game. He's kind of awkward. So if Buday is just trying to lean forward in the clinch and hang out there all day, like it just seems like a recipe for eventually I make one mistake and this dude wraps up a ninja choke and we're done with the fight. Okay. Or conversely, it's like Buday mixing it up in the clinch with this dude. Like I really don't like the look of that for him. Maybe he can knee him in the body. Like that's the one thing he does, push people back, knee him in the body. I believe that he said like after he lost to Gaziv, I'm going to get on a new strength and conditioning and whatever. That means steroids, right? We're talking in code words. That means he's going to get on drugs now that his manager was withholding from him before. And you look at his strength of schedule in the UFC, just horrible, right? So as far as I'm concerned, it's a Buday or pass situation at the money line. Like you don't trust Kennedy at minus 300. He's literally fumbled the bag against the ghost of OSP. No disrespect. He was 40 and he found drugs and he beat Kennedy too. But when you look at where these guys are at, I don't trust Buday to be a dangerous, aggressive guy. Like he just seems to me like a guy who was feasting on the lowest level heavyweights. And now they're like, oh, he got exposed so bad against Gaziv. It's time to just throw him to the wolves. And I feel like Kennedy is a guy they've always tried to like build up and it hasn't quite worked out. They put him in against Olberg. I think people forget he beat Olberg's ass, right? He withstood the storm. He came back and fired on him. Bro, Olberg's like what? One fight away from a title now. It's like this guy has a decent resume behind him, and Buday has beaten a bunch of jabronis and then got finished really easily by the first real step up in competition. Arlovsky fight, guys, that might be the only time Arlovsky deserved to win a fight. In the last like 5 years. And it's like the only split decision he doesn't get is the one that he deserved, brutal run out for him. But how do you feel about this one, Wiz? It's not a fight I love, but I lean towards Kennedy here, and that's never a good feeling.
Yeah, I was talking to Evan about this one earlier in the weekend. Yeah, all signs point to Kennedy here. Kennedy inside the distance, probably. He could get a knockout or a submission here, but can you trust Kennedy? That's the thing. It's tough. I understand that those fights were at light heavyweight and he could have definitely been cutting way too much weight. But at the same time, it's not just the durability, it's more the IQ sometimes. It's where he'll be winning a fight standing and then he shoots a dumb takedown and finds his way into some bad positions. And Buday, I don't think he's going to threaten much at all here with any side of the game. The only real strength he has is the cage push and keeping guys there, which, OSP was able to successfully do it for a little bit. Ultimately, I just think Kennedy's probably going to find a first-round knockout if all things out the window, like the past is the past, and we're getting a new Kennedy here at heavyweight. I think he lands the first-round knockout. But am I going anywhere near that money line in terms of a parlay piece or inside the distance prices? Probably not. Like you said, if you're leaning Kennedy, then something's wrong, but it's just got to be right.
The only thing that I would kind of be interested in here, and the numbers aren't great, is the end sub is plus 600. I think Kennedy's got a path to a front choke here. I think Buday, if he gets on top, has a decent enough Kimura series. I mentioned that on Clint's chat that he was doing the other night. I was in the chat, and it was kind of just something that caught my attention because he was talking about the Kimura, and I was thinking about the front headlock, and I was like, I could kind of see that. I don't know if it's going to be easy to Kimura somebody like Kennedy, but I also can't recall a lot of him being like flat on his back, and when you're underneath a heavyweight, I will just say, that could be a real test of your character, right? Like, do I still want to be doing this ultimate fighting shit when I have 250 pounds of Martin Buday on my chest? That'll make any man second guess that. But The other thing is the under 2.5 is at -115 in this fight. Kind of intriguing to me. I'm not going to make that click because there's other fights that I like a little bit more and I'm a little more confident in my reads on, but something that is at least intriguing to me. I would have expected this fight's favorite to end inside the distance, especially with Kennedy being such a big favorite, but that's something that at least stood out to me. If I was trying to buy this down, we've seen Kennedy get folded up in the first round, but we also know he's a pretty dangerous finisher at his best. And I do think confidence is a huge thing for fighters. I think Kennedy didn't feel like he could really let it go in the light heavyweight division. And I think he's going to be a little bit more confident at heavyweight. And honestly, like if you put him in there with Francis Ngannou or something, like that could shake your confidence. But like if he's standing across from Martin Buday, I feel like this guy's going to be like, we're all good here. I'm going to get him. Like, so maybe I'm wrong about that, right? Kennedy has had mental lapses in the past, but I just think if you were saying like Liam, talent evaluate these two guys, they just walked into your gym, who's going to have a better career? I would say Kennedy and Nzechukwu. Pretty straightforward. All right, next up, we got Cortavious Romious taking on Chang Ho Lee. And I will just be honest with you guys, right? I've taped a lot of these fights. That's why I have thoughts. I can reference specific moments from the tape. I have not gone back and retaped these guys this week. Chang Ho Lee, I did not expect him to win his fight in the road to UFC finale. I thought it was going to be a split decision that went the other way. He won the decision. Hey, God bless him, right? Hats off to him. The guy got a couple finishes on road to UFC. Road to UFC fighters have been faring really poorly in the UFC. Cortavious Romious is a guy that I think is going to go, 500 at best over the course of a UFC career. And that's no disrespect. I just think he got here a little bit late. He's in a very competitive division, 135. They're like, name me the easy fight. It's like everybody's a killer. Everybody's well-rounded. They've got good skills. So I think this is a winnable fight for him. Gaston Bolaños had a lot of experience. I thought Gaston was a live underdog in that fight. And now you're looking at a Romious who people are saying, what is he good at? What is his upside? I don't think his grappling's very good. I think he kind of fell in love with his grappling. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's really aggressive, right? He's going to attempt offense, but might fall out of position, might not have every answer in every sequence. But conversely, on the feet, I don't think he's a great striker. I just think he's a really dangerous one, right? Especially in single moments. Like we've kind of seen, he can get clipped. He can get hurt. He can be emotional at times. I thought the Tavares fight, clear the cobwebs. Let's go do a couple reverse sprinting laps. Maybe shoot a takedown. That would have been a good time to grapple, right? But instead, he got into a swinging exchange really early and got put on a meme, right? I picked Ramon Tavares there. I thought he was going to knock him out. I didn't think it was going to be that easy, but I just thought Ramon Tavares, hard to kill. And if you're not going to kill him, he's going to swing with you in the pocket. We saw Davey Grant have to use his experience, his savviness to beat him. But now I'm looking at a Romious who is the underdog in this spot, similar age. He's been competing on a more difficult circuit as far as I'm concerned, whether that's the Contender Series or whether that's, fighting Gaston Bolaños in a UFC debut. I mean, Bolaños had high hopes when he first came, and then people exposed his grappling a little bit. He kind of took some time on the sidelines and clearly made improvements in those phases. So I think when you look at a guy like Romious, a lot of what I've seen from him in terms of the highlight reel and stuff like that, that's what the UFC wants, right? Spinning head kicks, crazy finishes, attempting a lot of offense. They love that. Fighting to close competitive split decisions, not a huge fan of that. So I think when I look at who the UFC is trying to position, it's probably the guy with a nickname. It's probably the guy with a nice, fun backstory. It's probably the guy that's, got all these explosive finishes that they can really strap a rocket ship to him and try and make it exciting when he's coming out to fight, if he can get another big finish. But he's also this guy that might just go 0-3 on a UFC run and be done with it, right? So I think Romious would be my only way to position myself right now because I don't know enough about Chang Ho Lee to trust him at -165 in a UFC debut, but I will do more tape, more due diligence. This is an article play for me. So I post my article as I write it up on Patreon every week. It goes up on Roto Grinders when it's finished, when it's been edited, everything like that on the back end. So if you're looking for more information from me on this fight, I will have it. I don't have it now. Wiz, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I used to think that Cortavious was a really strong wrestler and grappler, and I kind of maybe was misled by his prior tape. Sure, he was in the American pro circuit for his first 10 fights, which you can count on a little bit more than the regional scene that Chang Ho Lee has been in. And it's just the fate of the road to UFC fighters is just never ending for me. I will always be on the opposite side, no matter who they throw against them, because the level of competition is just so steep in terms of that difference, and you just can't count on some of these performances that they've shown on tape. So you have to take it all with a grain of salt. Now, one thing that I do think about Romious, and this is going to sound a little contradictory because obviously I'm rooting for Finney, but I just think he's a little bit too small for the division. I think it's a little bit tougher to make up for that in these lighter divisions just because you don't really have that much weight on you as it is. And these bigger guys, when they start to balloon up after weigh-ins, sometimes they're about 20 to 30 pounds heavier. And that strength difference is just going to amount to, a huge intangible advantage. So I think Chang Ho Lee is going to be the stronger fighter in this matchup. And I think he'll be able to mix it up a little bit on the ground too with Cortavius and just kind of blanket him. But I'm not impressed with either fighter. Ultimately, dog or pass, but probably passing here. Not the strongest opinion on this fight. But shout out to Romious. He's always shown me love, and I see him put in work day in and day out here. So shout out to him.
Hell yeah, man. One thing I wanted to note here as well before we move off this fight, the losses I think are all pretty respectable for Romious. I'm not saying they're all like world class, but you can go back and look. And Jornal Lugo, he's 8-2 as a professional. He lost to him when he was 3-0, split decision, close fight. Jornal Lugo is no punk, right? He's a guy that they've tried to market in other organizations. You look at the Michael Imperato fight. I thought the UFC was setting that up to try and get Imperato a contract with the UFC, honestly, just because if you look back, he's got a weird backstory. Him and Pat Pitlick were both picked up at a Dana White looking for a fight type show to see if they were UFC quality, and they both ended up losing, unfortunately for them on the Contender. But when you look at it, Romious, he lost to Tavares, who's another guy who's in the UFC, proven that he could go beat UFC level guys, let's say, beat Seri City in a super close one. Gaston Bolaños, another guy who's been with the promotion for a while. So none of these losses are horrible. And then you look back on on the amateur circuit, he lost to David Onama. He lost a split decision to a guy who was 8-0 as an amateur. Like he's been around for a while doing this. And so at 31, getting more comfortable in the UFC's octagon, I kind of just like him a little bit more as a pick here. But to your point, the size is a factor. 5'4", 68 inches of reach. He's a small guy for this division, so a little bit of a prove-it spot for Romious as well as for Chang Ho Lee. All right, brother. Next up, we got the co-main event of the evening. And Wiz, I got a lot to say here, my brother. I'll be very judicious with my time, though, as to not keep you too long. I know you've got a big fight week ahead of you, but I'll just say this, man. I have been a Joe Anderson Brito truther from the beginning, right? I bet this guy against Bill Algeo, and he lost, and I couldn't believe it, man. I said at the time, I was like, he blew it, and he did blow it. He got out-grappled in that fight by Bill Algeo. You guys can go back and watch. He started off hot, all offense, all success. So I'd lift him up, throw him around. Very inefficient with his energy, to quote a Irishman who's in bad favor these days. When you look at what he's done since then, he's shown that he is still the same guy. He's a crazy banger. He's got power on the feet. He will fight anywhere. He's not afraid of anybody. He's a dog. He'll go out there and swing with you, but he's not to be trusted at Big Chalk, and that's a fact, right? You go back and look, Weston Wilson, he's minus 1250. Weston Wilson has no business in the octagon with him. By the way, watch the Gene Silva fight. Gene, clean destruction, just destroyed him every which way but loose, right? Punch here, punch there. Don't touch me. Keep him away. Easy, right? Made it look like a very simple fight. Then you watch Weston Wilson against Joe Anderson Brito, and I think people forget how that fight really went. They remember Joe Anderson Brito beating the shit out of him because he did at the very end of a fight where they got into a couple really awkward leg locking exchanges right at the beginning, and Weston Wilson is going for a heel hook. Weston Wilson is going for a knee bar. Multiple submission attempts from Weston Wilson. And by the way, I then got Weston Wilson plus 3XX against Czechoslovakia. Thank you all for that. God bless you. But in any case, you look back and you say to yourself, all right, Joe Anderson Brito, is he impossible to submit? That's what people would have you believe, right? If you listen to their breakdowns or whatever, like Joe Anderson Brito is clearly good, bro. If you're on top of Diego Lopes and defending guard submissions and staying in those positions and not getting tapped, like it's nothing but love and respect for you. But in doing so, he was in some awkward positions, right? So it's like you've seen him be in awkward positions against Diego Lopes, find a way to survive, find a way out of it. But enough to say, man, this guy puts himself in some crazy positions. He takes a lot of risks. This guy kind of flies a little close to the sun, right? Then we see him, okay, how about JSP? This is a fight that I feel like people, again, like they memory hold the fight. And they're like, yeah, you remember that one awesome moment where he stood up and, what are you going to do something about it, boy? And he stands up and chokes him instantly. I'm like, yo, fair play, right? Fair play. Awesome. He was getting worked. I had written up that fight, and I'm a Brito guy. So I say, like, if you don't give him his due in round 1 against every fighter in the UFC, you're foolish, right? Against Andre Fili, you guys go back and look at that fight card. I forget which one it was, but find out which fight card it was. Go back to the comment section of my YouTube video, and you see Andre Fili is a lock this week, bro. He's the parlay leg of the week. Easy click on Andre Fili. And I was like, yeah, give me 4 units plus 250 Joe Anderson Brito, and we'll live with the result because he's a dangerous guy against everybody. He's got punching power against anybody. Is he a great decision maker? Is he a super intelligent fighter? I honestly have to temper your enthusiasm with that because you look back and the win against Jack Shore, great win, right? Jack Shore retired from mixed martial arts shortly thereafter. How much do we want to weigh into that? Also, it was kind of a weird leg cut stoppage. It was impressive, right? He landed some great low kicks. Guy's got power in his hands. He's got great leg kicks. He's an explosive guy. Got a great knockout against Chepe on the regionals. Like, take nothing away from Joe Anderson Brito. But we have a 2-man situation every time there's a fight. And you got to talk about both sides. You got to give both guys their due. And the truth about Pat Sabatini is, if he was not as fragile as he is, he would probably be in a top 5 situation, a top 10 situation. The guy is an incredible grappler, an incredible top player. What he's done is very special as an athlete. But on the other side of things, there's some guys that are built for fighting. They're built for war. You could hit them with a shovel in the side of their head, and they will just keep coming forward. That's a different kind of guy than Pat, because Pat got kicked in the face one time against Damon Jackson, and he forgot how to do mixed martial arts, and that's not on him, right? There's some things you can control. There's some things that you can't control. Your chin is one of them, and it's a sad reality of the sport. If you've watched Shannon Ross, bro is not a bad fighter. He just cannot take one punch or the fight is over shortly thereafter, and this is a cage fight. So it's like, I'm probably going to take one punch over the course of 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and it's like, if I can't afford to take one, big problems for me. So I look at this fight, and I say to myself, this seems to me like a violent-ass fight, like a very obviously violent fight, because on the one hand, for every minute that this fight goes on, that Pat has not submitted Joe Anderson Brito or gotten him to the ground and dominated him physically, he is liable to get knocked out with one punch. Joe Anderson Brito is that dude. He hits that hard. He throws with that intensity every time. So we've seen Pat against much lesser knockout artists get brutally finished, get hurt badly, get dropped badly. That's what we know. We've seen that. Here's the other thing. When Pat is grappling, is he 100% secure? No, because we actually one time saw him get his arm snapped in half in a mixed martial arts fight. He has a TKO loss on his record. You go back and watch it, he gets his arm snapped in half, and then the fight's over. And again, is Pat a bad grappler because that happened? No. Brian Ortega got his arm snapped in half trying to pull out of an arm lock from Yair. If you're blessed with great bone structure, maybe you live and survive past those. It's just a fight at the end of the day, and you got to go with what you see. I see Pat Sabatini as an extremely fragile, elite fighter. If you touch this guy on the chin, he could fall apart in an instant. At any point in the fight, you touch him, it could be over. That's a problem. But on the other side, if this guy gets your back one time, it could be big bang, take little bang. We saw that against JSP. Same guy who was dogging up on Brito until he said, get up and do something, boy, and literally just had a brain fart, like just forgot how to fight. I think JSP is not the most intelligent dude in the division, no disrespect. On the other side of things, what about Pat Sabatini? He didn't go out there and try and make it a bravado contest with JSP. Who wants to stand and bang more? He said, who's the better grappler? Big bank, take little bank. I'm way better than you. Not close. And it wasn't close. And when you look at Pat Sabatini against a lot of guys, Lucas Almeida, I think people forget what that fight looked like. He took him down and beat him within an inch of his life and then mercifully submitted him after he beat the shit out of that guy. So Pat Sabatini, he ain't a nice guy on top either, right? He'll try and beat you up and finish you brutally. Doesn't care. Seems like the most violent fight for me on the card. Like, just on paper, like, these guys go 15 minutes, it's hats off to him. I think that means Pat Sabatini, had to take his back, hold on for dear life. Like, I see this fight ending inside the distance at a big clip, and I'm going to leave it there. But I think fun fight, great scrap. I'm happy with the matchmaking. If I was in Pat's team, maybe I wouldn't have taken this one off first rip, but I'll also just say this. Pat had a sports psychologist that he worked with before his last fight. I told people about this. I was like, that for me feels like a difference maker for him, because what does Pat do against Diego Lopes? He's out there trading big shots and like going crazy and having this wild fight. You know what he needed? A very controlled fight, a very simple hold on the wrist, make this guy work a little bit. That's what he needed against Lopes, and he didn't have it because he was panicking, and he knows if I get hit, shit's not going to go pretty for me. And he worked with a sports psychologist who told him, control what you can control, have a plan for what you're going to do, and go execute it to the best of your ability and leave the result in God's hand. Because honestly, you can't control the result. If you hyperfixate on it, you'll lose. And if you go out there and give yourself your best skills for 15 minutes, you can beat anybody in the world, which is true. And so Pat Sabatini then went out there against JSP, guy who's tough, guy who knows how to grapple, a guy who's stingy, a guy who gets credit from all the guys who train with him in the room. Man, this guy's tough to beat. This guy's tough to outlast. This guy's tough to submit. And he fucking embarrassed him, right? Again, and I don't mean that to put down JSP. I mean it to celebrate Pat Sabatini, who's very, very good. And the last thing I'll say here as I kick it to Wizz, people are telling me he doesn't have the size, the physicality to submit a guy like Brito. Go watch him submit Nico Price, who, by the way, has been – people are telling me Nico Price sucks. I'm like, you don't have to like Nico Price, his game, and think it's the best ever to say he's been submitted one time ever in 26 professional fights, and it was against Vicente Luque, who is a beast, who's a top 5 guy in his prime. It's like, I think of this and I say to myself, Pat Sabatini took his back and said, big bank, take little bank against a 170 that's active in the UFC, and people are telling me he can't submit this guy. I'm like, okay, just seems to me like the most violent fight. What about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the same sentiment now. For me, I really like Pat here, but I just cannot get to the money line, especially with that chin. I understand the grappling advantage that we have here, but also we have someone in Brito who I think can just buck him off. I know sometimes when people think of high-level jiu-jitsu and you know, the power on the opposite side, it can usually get negated, and I do agree. But Brito is not a white belt by any means. He can defend. He's positionally sound. I'm not saying that he can't get submitted here, but I do think that he's not like an insta-sub territory if he gets taken down. And then every minute that this fight's on the feet, I think Brito's going to be hurting Pat Sabatini. So it's just a matter of how quickly each fighter can get to their game plan, because if this fight stays on the feet, I do expect Brito to knock Pat Sabatini out at some point. I was looking at the round 1 and round 2 knockout numbers, and round 1 was plus 275, which, to be honest, I still would play because I do think that's a big contingency in the Brito money line here. And then round 2 knockout was at plus 400. I would rather just take the round 1 and, enter in on Pat live after round 1 if he survives. I think that's probably the best way to play this fight, along with the fight doesn't go. I was more interested in seeing if this fight would have the under 2.5 line somewhere around like minus 160, 170. I think it was there earlier in the week before it blew up. And I regret not taking that a little bit earlier. Now the fight doesn't go is at around minus 250, and that's just unplayable. I'm never going to lay that kind of juice, even though like I'm known to mix it up with juice and dog plays on a weekly basis, but I just can't do that straight. But yeah, I do think this is the fight that more often than not does not hit the scorecards. And I think that fight doesn't go to distance is a good parlay piece. But all reasons aside, I think Brito ends up winning this fight. I think he does find the first round knockout. I just think he's just much faster than Sabatini on the feet. And it's just going to pose a lot of problems. I don't think Sabatini is going to find easy takedowns here, and I could be wrong. But I think the physicality of Brito early on is going to cause some issues when it comes to taking him down. And I think he's going to be able to just get those underhooks, pull Pat right up, and then continue striking on the feet. Now, we have seen some moments where Brito has shown some pretty poor fight IQ, and that can get him in trouble here. So I hope he minds his P's and Q's. But yeah, I'll be on the round 1 knockout, and then we'll look to enter in on Pat Moneyline live.
I think that's a good way to go about it. I'm looking at violence, and I'm going to leave it there.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, folks, we got the main event of the evening. I want to just ask everybody who's rocking with us, if you don't mind, make sure you drop the like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do this each and every week, trying to break down high-level mixed martial arts action in the UFC, and I hope that you guys enjoy. I know that there's some PFL tomorrow. I'm going to take a glance at that for the Patreon folks after this show, but we wanted to make sure we had good UFC information for you guys in the can. That's what we're doing. Josh Emmett taking on Lerone Murphy here in the main event. And I'll give you a little context as I kick it over to my guy, Wizz MMA. Josh Emmett, one of the most prolific underdogs in the history of the featherweight division. Lerone Murphy on an absolute tear, won all of his fights since coming to the UFC. This guy is a stud, man. He's a very dangerous fighter. He's getting a lot of respect. He called for this fight, 33 years of age. Do you think the number's right? Minus 3XX or whatever it is, minus high 200s on Lerone Murphy, or do you think Josh Emmett has one more in the can?
Man, this is going to be an exciting fight. Just in all aspects, I think both these guys bring the fight. They're not going to leave anything to be desired. We know what they both offer, and more often than not, we're going to be seeing a 25-minute striking battle where Lerone could mix in the takedowns here and there, but I don't expect it to be for a prolonged period of time. The one thing I will say about Lerone is he can get countered. And Josh Emmett's biggest weapon is that right hand. And we've seen him put down so many people. I mean, God's sake, he only needed to land 2 strikes against Bryce Mitchell, and he put his ass out quick. And we're seeing Bryce
Might
Mitchell.
Be the worst knockout in UFC history. I'm not even kidding about that.
Was the scariest knockout. And he was a huge underdog in that fight, too. Let's not forget. One of the scariest knockouts in UFC history. Bryce didn't get up for like a good 3-4 minutes. So scary power on the side of Josh Emmett here. And if he's able to land those counters effectively, I could see him hurting Lerone at some point. Let's not forget, Josh Emmett took Ilia Topuria, albeit he took one of the most historic ass whoopings of all time from Ilia Topuria. I think one of the scorecards was 50-42, if I remember correctly. That should say enough, but he stuck with it. He stayed through and through, took him to a decision, and made it an honest fight. And he was landing on Ilia. It's not like he wasn't competitive at all. I know the 50-42 is a little bit blinding to the fact, but if you rewatch that fight and some of the rounds, he was landing a lot of shots. And if he lands the same shots on Lerone Murphy, I'm not as confident that Lerone could take them. All of that being said, I think Lerone Murphy is just the better mixed martial artist in this fight. I think in the submission game, Lerone does have a little bit of an edge. And then I think he can land some takedowns here and win some minutes on top. More of an elusive striker rather than power. And he usually wins his fights by the attritional side. But I still feel like Josh Emmett can hold his own here. So for me, it's dog or pass. I think it's a really exciting main event. And if you listen to some of the media interviews here from Josh Emmett, he asked one of the reporters earlier today, and I'm sure everyone has seen this, but he was like, what are the odds this time? And he was like, yeah, you're like plus 295. And he's like, bet the house. So that just speaks volumes on his confidence going into this fight. But don't let that blind you into a Josh Emmett bet. Do your due diligence and watch the tape and whatever you come out with. And hopefully we can steer you in the right direction too. But for me, I think it's dog or pass, and I might take some Josh Emmett this weekend.
Yeah, man. I'm going to make it 2 for 2. I think it's not just dog or pass, man. I think it's most likely dog. And when I say that, I have a great deal of respect for Lerone Murphy. I think he's a very good fighter. If you look back at his record, wins against Dan Ige, Edson Barbosa, Josh Culibao, Gabriel Santos, Makwan Amirkhani, Douglas Silva de Andrade, Ricardo Ramos, and a split draw, by the way, against Zubaira Tuhugov in a UFC debut. So the guy's been around since 2019. He's been asking for a huge leap up in competition. And we did see him one time go in a main event against Edson Jr. Barbosa, but then he got demoted, right? He got back down on the main card. My man lost that main event billing. And I think they expected him to go out there and finish Edson, right? We've seen Edson, frankly, get finished by lesser foes, in my view, like a Giga Chikadze. And Giga's a good fighter. He's a dangerous guy, but frankly, he's been exposed a little bit at the highest levels, right? Guys have gotten to him. Calvin Kattar beat the absolute shit out of him, changed his life. And then you see what happened with Calvin and Josh. They had a much more competitive and honest fight, right? Lerone Murphy, here's the problem I'm having with this guy. He's having very honest decisions with guys that haven't shown themselves to be, super quality UFC fighters. And again, I don't mean that to be disparaging. Gabriel Santos, huge potential. Has he proven it yet? No, I think he's 1-2 in the promotion, right? If you look at the other side of things, Dan Ige. Dan Ige is like always a bridesmaid, never the bride, like very good fighter, mostly on the top 10, top, 8, but like kind of on the outside looking in, right? I would say he's like top 8 to top 20. Like he's always around there, but because he doesn't break through and win those upper echelon fights, he tends to stick around that range. And I thought he could have beat Lerone Murphy, a very close fight, an honest fight. He hurt him bad early. Lerone Murphy rallied late, did what he needed to do. But again, it's like we're going a competitive, honest decision against Dan Ige. Unanimous. I thought it could have went either way. Edson Barbosa fight, clear win for him. Did he take some damage though? Did you see him get busted up? Did you see him wearing it a little bit after 5? Yeah, and that's against an Edson who's slowing down, in my opinion, a little bit fragile. And a guy that at 145, you never knew what to expect from him in terms of cardio. I felt like it was a little bit hit and miss in that division. Now we go back to the Kulabau fight. It's like, I like Josh Kulabau. I respect Josh Kulabau. I don't even know if he kept his job with the promotion. Like, I think he was on the verge of being cut. He's lost a couple of close decisions. But again, you look at that fight, does it tell me a ton? Not really. The split decision with Gabriel Santos, I thought he got robbed. I tweeted it on the night of. I thought he got robbed, plain and simple. So if they give that fight to him, it's a completely different conversation, right? Lerone Murphy's not getting main events, but he's still earning his way up. So then you say, okay, Makwan Amirkhani. I am old enough to remember the Makwan Amirkhani fight. Makwan, cigarette cardio and all, man. He's taking him down. He's having a great time. He's getting to his positions. He's looking good on offense. Round 2 starts. Knee right to the head and he's dead. Okay, hats off to you, right? It was a beautiful knockout. One of the most sensational you'll ever see. But it's because Makwan Amirkhani is the most predictable fighter in the UFC. I'm going to come out there after the Andy Ogle knockout, right? I'm going to come out there and try and wrestle you, grapple you, get a front headlock. And if I don't get it, I'm going to quit after 7 minutes. No problem. Respect, right? We all love Makwan. But it's kind of the way it goes. And now we say, okay, Douglas Silva de Andrade. He's kind of a guy that was always a little bit roided up, muscly head, and he can expose you if you're not really on that level. But the best guys he fought in the UFC kind of all beat him, right? So I think Murphy deserves to be in these fights. But every good fighter takes a loss, man. And it's very hard to avoid that first L. When you look at, like, who could it be? I don't know if Lerone Murphy's getting his face busted against Edson Barbosa, if he's getting hurt badly against Dan Ige, if he's getting into contentious exchanges with a lot of these guys. What the fuck is going to happen if he gets hit by Josh Emmett, who literally put Bryce Mitchell in a bag? We saw Ilia Topuria fight this guy, and Ilia, maybe his most honest fight in the UFC, besides Yusuf Zalal and Josh Emmett, was the Bryce Mitchell fight. Like, you go back and watch that, he got taken down to end round 1. He had some competitive exchanges with Bryce on the feet, which people won't remember, but that's true. And if you go back and watch, Josh Emmett said, hold this, and then put him in a bag. And that was the end of that fight. And by the way, Bryce is talking about maybe I should retire. That guy scared me. Thank you for not hitting me, Josh Emmett. He's like praying to him. Thank you, Josh Emmett, for not hitting me while I was already dead. Like, it was crazy, right? I've seen this guy go out there and prove it as an underdog many times. I picked Calvin Kattar via split decision in my Roto Grinders article. And I bet Josh Emmett at plus 200 because I said the line's too wide. It's going to be a close decision. Close decision. Everybody bitched and complained. I said, you can't even get mad at me. I told you Kattar would win. I told you to bet on Josh Emmett. Now you look at this fight and I say, if it goes a competitive hard 25, who do I think gets their hand raised? Fuck if I know. Like, I lean towards Lerone, right? He's the younger guy. He's been out there. He's done one 5-round fight. He's done one really hard fight, a really good competitive fight. Nice job, right? Hats off to you. Beat Edson. Now it's a little bit of a higher level, right? This guy, Josh Emmett, showed he could take a fucking whooping over 25 and might not be able to put me away. So you look at the Yair fight, I thought Yair just was the worst matchup for him in the division. I'm like, he's way too fast. He's going to hit him from everywhere, from the outside. How are you going to box with Yair? Volk didn't try and box with Yair. He's like, I'm going to take him down. I'm going to take him down over and over and over again. So when I'm looking at this, man, I'm saying to myself, if it goes a competitive 25, I think it's an honest fight. If somebody gets killed, I think it's actually more likely it's Lerone, but I think it could go either way. And I'm like, that just seems to me like a fight where maybe I make Lerone a minus 150. Price is off as far as I'm concerned. So the way I see it, man. And at 40 years of age, you throw one leg kick, your leg just snaps. Like, things can bottom out and go really sideways for you at this age. But in terms of guys who keep their body in impeccable condition, guys that have proven they can come back from adversity as well. How about Josh Emmett gets his face smashed to pieces by Jeremy Stevens and just starts rattling off a bunch more wins in the UFC? The guy is the UFC's featherweight iron horse. I said years back, you can go back and find, again, I've been doing this shit on YouTube for a long time. There's a lot of video of me talking. I said many, many stupid things. But I also said when you're looking for guys that can beat Volkanovski, I'm looking at guys like Yair, like Josh Emmett, like Ilia Topuria. Why? They can knock you the fuck out if you stand in front of them. They can put you down. They can hurt you. They can have big consequences if you want to play around. And I think that Josh Emmett, you want to stand in front of this guy, man? Bryce Mitchell got put on the highlight reel. Shane Burgos had his career and his life changed forever. It's like, you want to stand in front of this guy. He's going to let you find out what that power tastes like. If you have 15 minutes and he's down, right, 12, he can land one punch, change the whole fight. Fight's different now, right? Go back and watch the Michael Johnson fight. He's having a tough time, maybe a little bit of struggle with the range, can't get close. One overhand right, Michael Johnson is doing the stiff board dance, falling backwards as one frozen object. That's what Josh Emmett does to people. You know, Jeremy Stevens said, when I knock people out, they don't fucking move. Josh too, bro. He knocks people out and they don't fucking move. And Lerone Murphy, when's the last time he did that to somebody? Anybody? Makwan? Do you know what fucking Josh Emmett would do to Makwan Amirkhani? No disrespect. It would not be good for Makwan. He would put him in a body bag badly. So let's find out. That's how I feel about this one, my man. I think I'm surprised by the line. I'm surprised by the unders as well, knowing how violent these two guys can be. So, yeah, man, I like Josh. I think the line is off.
Let's go. Let's go. We've had I think on all the dogs this week, we've agreed on.
I love it. I love it. I also gave a little bit of love for my guy, Pedro Falcao, and I know you didn't comment much on that fight, but otherwise, man, I think we're seeing a lot of the same dogs this week.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be a really good fight card, a really entertaining fight card, especially coming after, I mean, UFC London was such a big letdown in terms of violence. I think we need some more violence. This card should give it to us.
Couldn't agree more. I think that this is a very violent card. You know, we've got the small cage. We've got some mismatches in terms of lines where that's reflected. But also we've got some binary fights, like one guy who can grapple, one guy who could strike, who's going to get their game going. And if you guys look back last week, one of my favorite plays on the card, and like I bet it as an under 1.5, I bet it as a fight not to go the distance, was the fight between Jamal Emmers and Gabriel Fly Miranda. And if you guys watch that fight, I said Gabriel Fly Miranda is going to give himself a chance to win the fight by selling out for his grappling in round 1. That's the only way he knows how to fight. I was like, he throws wild, he goes for offense, and he is saying, basically, in every fight, I'm going to kill you or you're going to kill me, and that's the end of it. He's gone to decision 4 times as a professional. Those are the kind of spots where I'm like, yeah, I'll live with the result, right? If it goes to the decision, okay, hats off to you guys. Great job, gentlemen, but it shouldn't, right? And Jamal Emmers hurt him every which way but loose. He gave up a bad position in the first round. Those are the kind of fights where I'm like, I want to lean into the volatility. I want to lean into the violence. And I'm looking to keep the ball rolling this year. Had good results so far this year. Knock on wood, 70% ROI, probably unsustainable, but we're going to try our best. What else are we going to do? So a couple winning weeks. I think it's 4 winning weeks in a row now on the show. Knock on wood. Back to work always, right? The bookie will never pay you for the work that you did last week. I already have a early UFC 314 navigation doc rolling because your boy wants to stay ahead. Your boy wants to be ready to go. Build on the momentum. Don't just, marinate in it. So my brother, we're not smelling our own farts. We're getting better each and every week. And Lord willing, we can keep the ball rolling. Wiz, anything you want to tell the people where they can find you? Anything else you got going on, brother?
Yeah, as always, Liam, thanks for having me on again. And thank you everyone for voting to have me on as always. It is fun to break down these fights. And I haven't said that about doing content or creating content in a long time. So happy to be here and hopefully for many more to come. You guys already know where to find me at Wizz MMA on Twitter, on YouTube. If you want to support my work, everything is on betmma.tips. So I post every single bet on there. So you can support my work there. And looking forward to another profitable week. Last week we profited 2 units. Got a little bit carried away with some of my dog shots there. But overall, profit is profit. Can't complain about 2 units. Just seemed a lot of it less than 9.54 the week before. But looking to come back this week and really make a big splash, especially with me being in Vegas and being more involved in fight week this time around. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, brother. Just threw up on the screen, guys, Last 4 weeks in a row, 0.9 units at a 58% ROI last week. 2 weeks ago, 3 units at a 244% ROI. 2 bets up, 2 bets down. A clean sweep for the Irish. Absolutely knew that Alexa Tainara was going to go out there and give Molly McCann serious problems on the mat. The week prior to that, 1.77 units, 54% ROI. Week prior to that, 0.99 units, 132% ROI. Can I promise it every time? No, I never can. And that's what I'll never do. But what I will do, same hard work, same effort, same energy each and every week. If you guys enjoy the show, if you enjoy the content that we put out, please do me 3 big favors. Hit like on this video, get subscribed to the channel, go support my guest, Wizz MMA, all his information down in the description box below. If you guys need anything more from us, hit us up in the comment section. Try and get back to those as much as possible over the course of fight week. Otherwise, y'all can find me in the Patreon, all the links below. God bless, peace, love, and chicken grease. Until next time, come back next week. We're having all the same fun again. Thanks, everybody.